motherhood interview. This is what I am calling a real life mom story. And it sounds a little funny because if you're a mom, you're a real life mom, right? But I think some of us are a little more vulnerable and transparent than others. And I wanted to choose some women in my community who share their stories openly and honestly. I think it's really valuable to see these women who are showing up and being brave and courageous and sharing their stories. And so I want to introduce you today to my friend Taylor Ames. She is at Mrs. Tay Ames on Instagram, and I immediately connected with her. I met her through my work with Beauty Counter, and she has just been such a lovely voice to go and check out on Instagram. I love her daughter Stella. She is a little spitfire like my Charlotte, and I know that you are all going to love her just as much. She's sharing her story today about postpartum anxiety and her journey with her daughter.
Okay, well, today I have an interview with Taylor Ames, and I met Taylor through Beauty Counter, and I just feel like we had really an instant connection. I've just been drawn to you. I feel like not only hearing part of your story, and I'm excited to like learn a little bit more about that today, but just like you just seem like a calming presence to me whenever I get to watch you on my phone. So I love just pulling you up and I'm like, I'm hanging out with my friend Tay today. So thank you so much for agreeing to do an interview with me.
Yes, absolutely.
And I really appreciate you being so open, honest, vulnerable on social media. I think that's how I even reached out to you, because you said something or were sharing something. And I'm like, this is what I wish moms did more. I feel like,
Yeah.
like even last night I was having a conversation with a friend where she was really opening up to me. And I was like, but you don't portray this at all. I would have never really
Yeah.
known this about you. It's like you have yourself so together. Everybody thinks like everything's so perfect. And I had no idea you were struggling like this. And so I think you being brave and sharing that allows other people to do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just, it feels natural to me to share it with people, because I think we've created this culture of hiding it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that kind of makes it feel shameful to feel these things. And so I think when you open it up, not only do you feel accepted by everybody that you share it with, but they feel accepted as well.
That's such a good way to put it. It is very like, I know I felt shame, especially like in the early months when I was really, really struggling. And I didn't want to tell anybody because I was so afraid. And exactly what you said, as soon as I started opening up, the floodgates opened of like other people telling me
Yeah.
their stories.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like the amount of messages I get from moms, women, anybody who's dealt with depression that I've spoken to, or, has watched my videos, they tell me their stories openly without me asking. And it's just so nice for them to have like an outlet where they can release it to, because I think for so long, you hold it in and you don't tell anyone. And it feels good to know that there's someone out there that accepts it.
And I think it's awesome that it's somebody besides like a therapist. Like
Yeah.
it's super amazing to go to therapy. Like this is really the first time in my life that I've like fully gone to therapy like
Mhm.
consistently.
Yeah.
But it is something like I feel like that person's like almost like in a way you are paying them to like listen to you and
Well, yeah, that and almost your friends too, because as much as wonderful as they are and as understanding as they are, it almost feels like if you have kind of a couple degrees of separation, you feel more willing to open up, and it's not someone you see every day, or
that's such a good
that.
point.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, so well, before we get into it too much, why don't you give a little bit of your background and your story so that other moms listening understand where you're coming from?
yes, absolutely. So my name is Taylor Ames. I am a mom of one little girl. Her name is Stella, and she will be turning 3 this month in September. She is a little spitfire, and she has been since birth. I've always been someone who's dealt with depression and anxiety. And then once I got pregnant, it actually kind of ramped up and the anxiety showed up. And I've had anxiety, but not to the point where it was like a noticeable issue until I became pregnant. And the pressure of being a mom hit me so hard. And I think a lot of that stems from our struggle to conceive, which is kind of, you know, I think a lot of women nowadays, more so than not, struggle to conceive.
Totally.
But I think that fear around that kind of amped up my anxiety. And that carried through until after I had Stella. And I didn't realize it at first that I was dealing with it. And I think it was kind of maybe a blend of taking, consuming the placenta or whatever. My hormones were kind of like fine for a month or two. And then all of a sudden I hit a dip and the anxiety went through the roof. And, in the beginning, I just blamed it on the fact that Stella was a needy baby. She was always crying, or, if she wasn't eating or sleeping, she was crying.
Amen. I had one of those.
Yeah. And so it's overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it just kind of spiraled into this fear and anxiety of, if someone else was holding her, I'd shake. And I just blamed it on, I don't want other people to have to deal with her. But in reality, it was like my own anxieties of, I don't, it just feels like it's all consuming. And so I dealt with anxiety more so even than depression, but I think they're kind of so correlated and, woven together that I think because of what I had gone through, it finally clicked on me. And I realized, I think it's because of the years of dealing with depression, I recognized it, on my own. And I said, oh my gosh, I woke up and I said, what am I doing? What's going on? I need help. I need to manage this. And it wasn't until it finally clicked that I was able to take a step back and kind of handle it. But it was months. I think it was probably 5 months.
I was going to ask around what time did she start to become a little bit more independent then, or was she sleeping a little bit more?
It's funny because I think when I started to calm down is when she finally started to calm down. And it's, I kept always blaming it on her, but I think her anxiety and her stress was probably coming from me, and she was sensing my tension. Mm-hmm. And maybe a mix of both. But once I started to calm down and realize that it's okay if she cries, or it's okay if she has, she's 5 months old, they're going to cry. I think once I started to get over that and started to, come out of this fog I felt like I was in, mm-hmm. she did it as well. And then ever since, she was a spitfire, but a good baby.
Right. Yeah. I honestly feel like you just kind of told my story, which is the wild part, because it's almost down to like the age. It was like 4.5, 5, 6 months. And I always go back and question, I'm like, could I have changed it? What could I have changed? And like, the reality is it was what it was. I learned so much through it. But it's like, I do really try to look for like lessons learned, or what could I pass on to other people? Do you feel like there's anything that do you think you could have changed anything, or was it more like the natural process you think you had to go through with a baby like that?
Yeah. As much as you could sit there and say, I needed to have relaxed, or you needed to know like it was going to be fine. I think anxiety is an all-consuming thing that you really can't just get over it. If that makes sense. It's not something that you just say, oh, it'll be fine, or, oh, you're fine. And,
did people say to you, oh, like, if you relax it, like, did they say that to you? Were you getting that feedback from people?
I think maybe a couple people might have, like, probably my mom would have mentioned it. But it was, you get so nervous. I feel like when you're in a fog of like depression or anxiety, like, hearing from other people that haven't just gone through what you've been through, I think is what is hard, because you get into this mindset. And I've dealt with that in depression too, where you get into the mindset, like, you don't know what I'm dealing with. You have no idea.
Right. You isolate yourself.
Yeah. And not that my mom hasn't been through depression or been through childbirth. It's the fact that she, she's so far removed from it. I just kept thinking, like, you don't understand what I'm dealing with. It's so hard. Right. Or you don't understand what a difficult baby is like. It's what happens. But I think hearing from other mothers that have been through it might have helped, people who have gone through a similar journey, like, you and I. If
Mhm.
we would have known each other back then, I bet that might have helped.
Right. At least we could have commiserated together.
Yes, yes. Maybe we would have come to a little sooner and realized, okay, it's not just my baby.
Right. Because I had a lot of the thoughts of, I was like blaming myself. Like if she had another mom, she wouldn't be like this. Like I kept thinking like it was somehow something I was doing wrong.
Yeah,
Um, and I felt like I was constantly trying to like fix her. And I think
yeah,
that was one of the things that kind of helped me too, is like I just realized like there's nothing to fix. She just needs to get all of this out,
yeah,
whatever this is that's locked inside. And still, like you said today, she has big emotions. She is not afraid to tell you. And in a lot of ways, I'm like, these are going to be the girls that are going to change the world, right? They're not
mhm,
going to just sit by and like let things happen. And it's fun to see her turning into like a little person,
yeah.
but I'm a little worried about the teenage years.
Oh gosh, yeah. I'm terrified because my mom keeps saying she's identical to me, and
Mm.
that's so terrifying.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean,
You're like,
it's fun, but it's
yeah.
terrifying. They're
Right.
gonna be world changers.
Yeah, totally. So, what did you do anything specific when you were dealing with the anxiety, or was it more about awareness for you?
So for me, it was kind of a blend of three things. I got back into therapy for a bit. I've been in and out of therapy since I was a child dealing with depression. So I was very
Okay.
comfortable saying, okay, it's time to go back to therapy. And I also, once you become aware of it, of the issue, a lot of times that is very helpful. And then also, what my mom and I did actually, once we realized it was such an issue, we kind of ripped the band aid and took a trip. Just my
Oh,
mom and Stella and I, which
nice.
I know not everybody's fortunate to do that, but we just decided, I needed to learn how to be able to get out and live my
Yeah.
life with her and know that it's going to be okay. And I thought, what better way to do that than get out of the state, get out of our house, and go somewhere new on a plane.
I
So
actually
we
think
did.
that's actually a really good idea, because I don't know about you, but like in those first months, I avoided going anywhere.
Yeah.
Like like not to the grocery store, not anywhere. So I'd literally sit in the house all the time.
Have 1000%. I would just
Yeah.
sit in the house and if there was an event or something happening, I would get so tense and nervous that
Yes.
she was going to
It was
lose
like the
it.
whole
And
week leading up to it would
yes,
be like worse. Yeah.
absolutely. And so it got to that point where I was like, I need to rip off the Band-Aid. Like it's time. And
Hmm.
so we booked a last minute weekend getaway. We went to, it was like, I think it was March or April. So it was Arizona. And
Okay.
we just ran.
That's like how to go.
It went great. Stella, she cried for a little bit on the plane. Like it's like 10 minutes each ride.
Right.
And what I learned in those 10 minutes is like, it's going to be okay. Like, she's
Right.
fine. Like, she's going to live. Nobody, shot me for having a crying baby on the plane. You're fine.
Right.
In fact, people were, there are always someone that's going to eye roll, but for the most part, people are loving and caring and kind and
Especially
just
if they're a
want,
parent, like
yeah,
they get it.
yeah, exactly. So it was really just an eye-opening experience because I learned that even if she does cry, it's okay. Like nothing bad is going to happen.
That's
So
such
that was
a actually valuable lesson to learn, really.
yeah, it was good. It was a good band-aid to rip off.
Yeah, I like that. Okay. Was that the third thing?
Yeah. So I just became aware, took the trip, and went back to therapy.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I mean, do you like going forward from that point, do you feel like you've ever kind of like had maybe setbacks, or do you feel like any of those patterns starting to come up? And if you do, what do you do to cope with those?
I think those patterns actually usually start to come up most of the time when I find myself lacking in taking care of myself. If I'm not filling myself up and really honing in on what I need as a mom,
Mm-hmm.
then the anxiety creeps in, the high tension creeps in, and the stress creeps in. And I think they all kind of snowball together. So
Yeah.
for me, doing things that really help me release, like going to yoga and, taking a warm bath or whatever it is, a walk by myself. Just taking time for myself, I think is key, which can be hard because my husband travels, but
yeah,
you find time.
I do know that it feels like he's gone like a lot. I know that you're like, usually like solo parenting or,
Yeah.
so it can be really hard, but I think it's also good wisdom to know because sometimes even if you can anticipate that week coming, it's like, okay, how can I reach out for help that week so that like I at least can go to like one yoga class or, can we both go outside for a walk and at least I'll be outside in the sunshine and
Absolutely.
like a lot of, I think what people have to realize is like you can set yourself up, like you can realize the patterns and then set it up so that you don't have to like crash every time he leaves or different things like that, or kind of realizing too that like if you're feeling anxious, it's like, okay, now I know I need to like step up my self-care game or
Absolutely.
maybe take a whole day to myself and ask somebody else to take the baby, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I personally have worked with my mom because I do, with Scott traveling so much, I do need that extra time. And so every Wednesday she takes Stella for me and has her so that I'm able to have a day to go to yoga and to take a hot shower and to care for myself because I started to learn those boundaries. Like, this is something that I need. I love to stay home with my daughter, but I also need some time where I'm not.
Yeah. And I
Just,
think it's important to mention here that like you're not just staying at home, you're working too,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like you're a leader with Beauty Counter. So, and not only is it like building your own business, but I feel like when you do have a team, like they need you to pour into them too. So like
absolutely.
that takes time and energy too. Cause I feel like there's, people are always talking about like working moms or stay-at-home moms. And I'm like, I just feel like there's always aspects of life, no matter like what your role is, where you're still pouring into so many different cups. Like you still have to like fill yours too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's a blessing to be able to stay home, but it doesn't mean that like you're exempt from needing some
Yeah.
space for yourself.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, totally. So is there anything like maybe from like the depression? I know you said you feel like they're so intercorrelated, because one of the things I've been trying to help people see or maybe understand is like, for me with the postpartum anxiety, I felt like I was just like running on this treadmill that was like as fast as the speed would let me go.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I did have a moment, I felt like I would slip into like a depression. Did you have anything like that? Like, did you see a combination of both of them, or did you really feel like it was mostly just the anxiety in that postpartum phase?
I think I noticed it in the sense of like when I feel depressed, I tend to hermit. I don't
Okay.
want to go anywhere. I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
do anything. I don't want to see people.
Yeah.
And it's like an overwhelming like fear and anxiety of going places. And even
Right.
without Stella, I was not interested. And I think that's probably how I recognized too that there was a problem.
I think that's actually a good point, because I didn't think about that with me. Like I was saying, we stayed at home,
Yeah.
and I was interpreting it as like the anxiety, like I didn't want to leave the house. I was so afraid she was going to cry, but probably it was a little bit of um, just kind of like the depression and just being like, sulking in a way, or,
Yeah.
just not having to go out and face anything.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Recognizing that was huge.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you got out of it,
Same
and
to you.
yeah, I mean, it was definitely rough. I think, I also want moms to hear that if you didn't have a hard baby and you're feeling like this, that's still totally valid, right?
Absolutely.
Because I feel like a lot of times I almost like I'm trying to like justify my story. I'm like, but she was a hard baby, but I'm like, it's also okay. Like if she was an easy baby and I felt like this, it's still
Yeah.
okay to feel like
Yeah.
that. And there's a tribe of women out here who have gone through similar experiences, and we get it. And we're here to
Absolutely.
support. But is there anything else that like you want to share with moms that are maybe struggling or having some of these mental health issues?
Yeah, I just think, obviously you're going to hear advice from 100 different directions. I think especially if people are noticing that something is up. And it's okay to feel how you're feeling. Like, don't feel shame. If someone tells you it's fine, get over it. Or, you're going to hear a bunch of different advice, but like knowing in your heart that it's okay to feel sad, even if you'd like to get out of it, it's still okay to feel sad or feel anxiety or feel the depression, and sit in that if you need to. Don't let someone tell you you're not allowed to be there, because I think I did feel like I wasn't allowed to be here because I was a mom. I had responsibilities. But knowing it's okay to feel those things and ask for help is important.
I think it's also what you said there, like to sit there and feel in it and be okay with it, especially like you mentioned kind of like their fertility struggles. Like even with me too, it was like I was supposed to feel this overwhelming happiness because I finally had this baby that like I had wanted for so long.
Yeah.
And I think there was almost like some shame and guilt wrapped up in that too.
Yeah. Like, you finally have everything you wanted. Why are you sad?
Yeah. Like it's like on paper, you could like, it just seems like it's like there's nothing else that you could want. Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you're trying to logically think about that, because I was a math teacher, I was so logical, like it's, but emotions and feelings and all of that, it isn't logic,
No.
that's why we don't have a handle on it. We're all just trying to figure it out.
Absolutely.
And so we just have to be there and support each other. But I think that's great advice. I think your story is definitely keep sharing it, going out there and opening up, because I know for me, it made me feel less alone and I really appreciated it. And I know that other moms are going to feel the same.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Oh, there you are. I lost you for a second.
Well, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. And I will make sure everybody has all of your contact information here in this post so that they can come and give you some love too. And I just appreciate your time.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks.